colleagues Kenny, Jason and Pramiti. Between the four of us, we'll be covering a wide variety of information protection and governance capabilities, all made possible by Microsoft 365. So first up, I'm going to spend some time today trying to help you understand your data. In particular, helping you understand how to identify and protect the stuff that's really important, your most sensitive data. Today more than ever, we live in a world where almost everything we do creates data. Wearable devices are now commonplace, and when I think about the Apple Watch I'm wearing, I'm reminded of how much data I'm generating myself just by standing here. It records the time I stand up, how much I walk, and even my heart rate. All of this data is important to me as it helps me become more conscious about my health. As consumers, we expect that by having more data and information about us, businesses should be smarter as well. Business should understand my context and provide me with a more personalized service, taking advantage of all the data that I'm providing. We all expect, however, that all of this data is being managed securely and that our privacy is protected at all times. This is a real challenge for us all. And aside from the moral obligation to respect our customers' data, we all have to abide by the ever-expanding regulatory requirements imposed upon us by the various levels of government all over the world. These regulations aren't static, and they're constantly being updated, which makes it even more difficult to maintain compliance. A lot of large organizations will try and combat this problem by hiring compliance experts. But as you all know, we're experiencing an IT skills shortage. Recruiting and retaining compliance specialists is an even greater challenge. As important as it is to have the right people working for us, it's also important to leverage technology and use this to try and bridge the gap. There's lots of disconnected solutions out there making good use of AI and automation, but they're all typically standalone solutions which can be difficult to integrate with the rest of our systems. And that brings us back to the point of today's presentation. And that is, how can we help you really know your data? At Microsoft, our compliance strategy has 4 pillars, and one of those is information protection and governance. It represents the first step in protecting and governing your data, and it's intended to help you really understand it. Knowing your data means to understand how much data you have, where it is, and how it's being accessed. Before we get into the demo, let's look at some top-of-mind questions most people are probably thinking about as I speak. Data is distributed across my digital estate, SharePoint online sites, multiple users, archives, on-premises. Where is that sensitive data located? When a new regulation comes along, do I know what data I should be classifying and whether my end users are managing it correctly? Sharing of personal and sensitive information outside my organization is also a growing problem for most of us, and it's a huge aspect of managing risk. How do I know what users are doing? And lastly, how do I scale and keep up with the volume and complexity of new data being born in the cloud or being migrated into the cloud? These are the questions I know many of you are asking yourself right now. Let's see how we can help. We provide flexible strategies for classifying your data. The classification methods are built in. They're flexible and they're organized according to different industry regulations. Additionally, we leverage machine learning to automatically classify unique data that isn't covered by our standard set. Some of these are already supplied for you, but we also give you the ability to build your own based on your specific content. These classifiers can then be leveraged and attached to sensitivity and retention labels. And finally, we give you visibility over all this data to ensure that you're maintaining your compliance and fine-tuning your policies. Let's have a look at what this looks like with a demo. Let's start by bringing up the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. What we're looking at here is the new Compliance Center, and more specifically, this is the Compliance Dashboard. We get a fantastic overview here of the state of our data classification efforts, with insights across the sensitivity labels I've applied, the retention labels in use, and where the labeling activity has taken place. This is a single pane of glass which provides me with insights across SharePoint, email, and with AIP Scanner, we can also get a view of on-premises data. We're constantly adding capability here, and over time we'll add even more insights. So let's get into some more detail here with the sensitive info type section. Here we see the out-of-box sensitivity types provided for you. And this is great because it allows you to get started immediately. even before you've begun working on your own classification schemes. We're using pattern matching here to find data, and in addition to those we've provided for you, you can add your own custom sensitive information types using keywords or KQL. We use these sensitivity types to scan across your data, and we can see the result of this in the overview dashboard we were just looking at. Let's go back and dig a little deeper. So looking at my top sensitive information types, I can easily see that the two top sensitive info types are both International Classification of Diseases. This is the dark blue and the cyan bars. The rest of the information types are bunched up at the end, but as I hover over them, I can see the business contracts, confidential project, and interestingly, profanities make up the rest. So it's great to see that I have this breakdown summary, but I can use Content Explorer to dig deeper. Let's click on Content Explorer and move on. So now I get more detail regarding the spread of my sensitive information. I'm seeing the matches between my sensitivity types and the location of the data in my organization. For instance, here I can see lots of matches in SharePoint. And when I move to EU debit card number, I can see that there are 5 matches in SharePoint. I'm curious as to where those 5 files are, so let's click on SharePoint and dig a bit deeper. So now I'm seeing more detail on the documents themselves, which match the sensitive information types. Obviously, documents may contain multiple sensitive info types, and it's probable that that's the case here as well. So let's click on one to investigate. As I suspected, the Contoso Purchasing Permissions document has matched on multiple information types. In fact, there's a count of 2 matches for US bank account number, which may be significant. Not only do I get a count of matches here, but as you can see, the degree of confidence is also shown. So let's close that off and think about how much detail we can get on the content within the document. It's great to get this summary view and all this insight, but I might want more. So let's click on the purchasing document and investigate. As you can see, we've included a native integrated viewer into this solution. Role-based access control is respected, however, along with permissions, but in this case, I'm an authorized reviewer, so I'm able to see the document preview here. In this view, I can confirm that this document does in fact contain 2 bank account numbers. The preview viewer helps me refine and validate the matching of content with the sensitivity types, and it's especially useful if you're developing your own custom sensitivity types. If you're creating your own types, you'll probably need to test and validate against sample and real documents in the way I've just shown you, and perhaps use this information to tune your KQL as a result. In addition to the file preview, we can dig into the metadata of the file, and here we gain even more insight into that file. So not only do we see the matches, but we also get to see who's created the document, who's modified the document, as well as the accuracy. So this is all really useful. So this is all really useful insight, but now that we've explored Content Explorer and we've gotten insights into our data landscape, the next question we need to consider is, how is our data being shared and accessed? And so to get this oversight, or this view, let's jump into Activity Explorer. In Activity Explorer, we get insight into labeling activity relating to files, as well as visibility of where those files are going. This is both for file activity internally, as well as external to your organization. And here we get a very clear visual representation of file activity. And I can see that on the 30th of October, there's been quite a lot of file transfers to removable media. This is the light blue bar. Conversely, on the day before, there was a lot of labeling activity, as indicated by the black bar. Now, that's incredibly powerful insight, and hopefully what that's showing me is that people are moving files onto removable media, but they're appropriately protecting those documents before doing so. Once again, incredibly powerful insight. So we can refine this view further by applying filtering. For example, what if I wanted to know if there were documents leaving my organization without sensitivity labels applied to them? Let me show you what I mean. So we can take advantage of the filtering capabilities we've built into the Activity Explorer. So let's do a filter here on activity. And we can add file path. And that looks good. So let's click on done. And now that I have the ability to filter on file path, we can add whatever file path I wish. In addition to managing my filters, I might also want to customize the columns. I can see that I've labeled activity happening here, but I don't see a column showing me what label was actually applied. So let's look for an appropriate column. I can see how applied, which will help me distinguish between auto and manual label application. But I can also see old sensitivity label, which might be useful if I want to see what labels are being changed from. In this case, however, I'm going to stick with sensitivity label. So let's select that one. And I can now see that the new column has been applied to my view. So this shows me that the first document has a confidential doc label applied to it, and that's good to see. The rest unfortunately don't, and that's a problem. So we've already talked about the out-of-box sensitivity types that we've got access to, but let's think about the volume and complexity of data that we're all dealing with. We've got many customers who have data which can't be classified using the pattern matching strategies we've already talked about, and even KQL is not providing the results that they hope for. Let's use resumes as an example. You know, in this case, I may have already used keywords like resume and curriculum vitae and job history, and perhaps I've even developed end user training and encouraged the users to apply sensitivity labels manually to documents. But after investigating the results in Content Explorer, we may find that we still don't have many resumes, all resumes labeled correctly, and we may even have some that are not labeled at all. In order to deal with this kind of challenge, we've created trainable classifiers. Now, a trainable classifier is built with AI and automation, and they're able to be tuned to your organization to find the data specific to you. We provide 6 of them out of the box, and they're already available to help you get started. And they are offensive language, resumes, source code, targeted harassment, profanity, and threat. And in addition to being available in fully trained models that are there for you, they're also ready to use with your retention and sensitivity labels. In this case, we could use a resume's built-in classifier here to identify and remediate our documents with a greater degree of confidence. So this is a great start, but what if your needs aren't covered by one of the built-in classifiers? So in that case, we may need to build our own. Let's have a look at what that looks like. We'll click on Create Trainable Classifier. So I'm going to use contracts as the example here, because even though we all know what a contract is, most organizations have very specific formats or requirements which may be unique to them. So in this case, a generic contracts classifier wouldn't be useful. So we need to be able to confidently identify similar documents to those non-generic contracts we have in our organization. So as you can see, there's only 3 steps involved here. Step 1 is simply name and describe your classifier. Let's call this Contoso Contracts. And next, I need to point the classifier at seed content. So I need to supply here between 50 to 500 files that represent the kind of content I need to identify elsewhere across my organization. Because I'm building a trainable classifier to recognize contract documents, I would probably work with the legal department and have them supply me with suitable samples. You know, it's important that I liaise with the appropriate stakeholders here, since being a security and compliance technical specialist doesn't necessarily mean I've got access or even understand what the appropriate seed content may be. So in this example, I'm using a SharePoint document library containing a representative set of contracts that I've been directed to by my legal department. Now I'm ready to review and commit my changes. And this is going to kick off the processing of the files in that document library, and it will build the model representing my data set. So I'm not done yet. as you can see, I don't yet have an indication of classifier accuracy. And the reason for that is it's now important to test the model with both some positive and negative sample files. So in order to further refine the model, we need to test against a SharePoint location where we want a mixture of good and bad examples. The sorts of ratios we're looking for here are 50-50 or 80-20. Now this is really important in order to train our model and achieve as much accuracy as possible. Now that that's done, the model guides me through further refinement by providing an opportunity to review items. So we can see here that I'm now at the review stage, so let's get on with it. I can now begin working through the tested items to review section. Here I can see the collection of documents I've been provided to review. All of these have been flagged as relevant, and I can see that I've got 29 documents remaining. As I work my way through each document, I have access to both a preview of the document as well as the file metadata to help me decide whether or not this was a good match. In this way, we're supplementing our own machine learning with human training specific to your organization. This is really important to ensure that your classifier is as accurate as possible. So in this case, I can easily see that the document in preview is in fact a contract document. The classifier has done a great job and identified the document correctly. So I'm going to confirm that prediction by clicking on yes. Now obviously if what we were seeing here was not a correct match, I would click on no, and that's also a valid way of providing that tuning capability. So now that I've completed the remaining documents in my review, we've got confirmation here that we're ready to publish the classifier and that we're achieving an accuracy rate of 99.6. That's a great level of accuracy. And so now that the model's been stabilized, I can put it to work. So now that I've got confidence in my ability to identify contracts across my organization, let's think about how I need to treat these documents in my organization. I may have a regulatory requirement to retain contracts such as GDPR, or there may be internal requirements to retain contracts for a certain amount of time. And so I'm going to use retention labels to do this. I'll set this up by moving to the Information Governance solution in the Compliance Center. I've already created a label for this demo, which I've called Europe Contracts. So let's select that one. As you can see, documents with this label applied will be retained for 7 years. And while this is great, I'd like to ensure that it gets applied automatically on any contract that's created by the users I publish it to. At the moment, I'm relying upon manual processes. So let's click Edit Label and see how we can improve things. So first, we need to specify the label we're working with. And it's here on the Choose Conditions page that we get to specify that we want to make use of our new trainable classifier. So this is in addition to the pattern matching options and the 6 built-in classifiers that we've already seen. And now that I've chosen trainable classifier, I'll specify the one I've just created. And you can see how straightforward this is. Creating that trainable classifier based on your own organizational specific content and then making use of that classifier in your retention label is really easy. And we can see this has taken effect by examining Content Explorer. So let's check that out now. So here we can confirm that the Europe Contracts retention label has been applied to 5,453 documents. From here, we could of course continue on and examine those documents in detail. We can get further confirmation by digging deeper, as you've already seen. So it's great that we can make use of trainable classifiers in our retention labels. But what about our sensitivity labels? We've recently announced the ability to apply auto-labeling with native clients, and this has been rolled out as we speak. Now this is going to include the ability to take advantage of trainable classifiers. So if you're using the built-in classifiers, these can be used to detect and protect things like resumes. Of course, in the case of contracts, we'll be using the trainable classifier that we've just created. Let's have a look at what this looks like. Let's create a sensitivity label here, which will apply the confidential doc sensitivity label to sensitive documents. And we want that to include automatically detected resumes. So we create the label just like we always have, but when we get to the auto labeling section of the wizard, we get to specify the conditions. Let's do that now. It's here that we can see that in addition to sensitive types, we also have the option to match content based on classifiers. I'm going to use one of the 6 built-in classifiers for my demo here, since I'm looking for resumes and we've got a built-in out-of-box model for that. Any trainable classifiers you've built yourself, of course, will be available here. So this will now apply to users' files, including files I'm working on using web apps. And here we can see an end user working on a resume, and once that classifier kicks in, they're notified that the document has been automatically classified for them. This makes it easy for end users to stay compliant, and it's really important, and it's a good example of where you can protect users from making mistakes, which may result in damage. So a great end user experience. And when we flip back to Content Explorer here, you can see that we've got confirmation that the correct sensitivity labels are being applied, and in this case have been applied to the document. You can get further confirmation of that by jumping into Preview View, where I not only see that this is in fact a resume and has been identified correctly, but that the sensitivity label has been applied, and I can see a watermark across that document. We get further confirmation here through Activity Explorer, and this is where we get further assurances that auto labeling is protecting sensitive content. The sensitivity label column we added earlier is a handy way to get a really quick visual confirmation. It may make sense to filter on the sensitivity label itself for a more focused view here. In this case, let's see all the documents that have this sensitivity label applied. And here they are. Perfect, just as I expected. So you're probably wondering now how to get started on all this. So think about how we can do that. So firstly, get to work on building your label taxonomy. And you do that by defining what's sensitive and what's not through the methods we've just talked about. Next, think about your protection and your governance policies. And finally, assess and adjust these based on ongoing monitoring of sensitive data and the impact on your users. And as far as the next steps are concerned, I'd encourage you to sign up for a trial and put what you've seen to the test. You might actually qualify for our pilot adoption program as well. So contact us using the link on the screen if you think that's the case. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank you for joining, and please ask any questions you may have in the Q&A box. I'd also like to introduce you to Kenny Singh, who will cover identifying and taking actions on insider risks and code of conduct violations in the next session. Thank you.
Welcome to the Identify and Take Action on Insider Risk and Code of Conduct Violation session. My name is Kenny Singh, and I'll be walking you through these two new exciting capabilities throughout the course of this session. So let's start with a very recent event. In March of 2019, an electric car manufacturer suffered a very significant IP theft. 4 employees left the organization, and with them, they took a lot more than branded sweatshirts. The ringleader sent 2 documents to his personal email, 2 highly confidential documents, and in the body of the email, the only thing that he actually mentioned was "use slydog you." Another person in the team sent 4 documents to his email and put the subject "good stuff." Between the 2 of them, they actually took a whole raft of trade secrets and proprietary information that gave the competitor a significant head start in establishing warehousing, inventory, and other control systems. The only way that this specific car manufacturer found out that there had been an IP theft is because accidentally one of the people who left the organization sent a document to an old company email address. The document actually had the logo of the new competitor, but it had the same design and layout information and other vestiges of the document when it existed in that specific electric car manufacturer's systems. That's how they actually found out. But had that not happened, the car manufacturer would have never found out that there had been such a significant IP theft and would have suffered the consequences of it therein. So the car manufacturer went ahead and sued the company and the employees, and recently that case was settled with a favorable outcome for this specific car manufacturer. So there are a broad range of risks and violations from insiders that need to be addressed and remediated accordingly to have a comprehensive and foolproof insider risk management solution. In our own experience, running some of the largest cloud services across the globe, we've actually found that trust is really difficult without the associated visibility, process, and control systems. There are different kinds of risks that are associated to insiders. They can be unintentional risks. For example, someone has unintentionally leaked a document, or there could be intentional risks where someone has maliciously shared content that might be potentially compromising to the organization. The solutions that we're going to talk to you about today address both these kinds of risks. So there was a recent crowd research partner survey that was conducted that actually found that more than 90% of the organization believe that risk from insiders is a significant risk in their specific organization. 53% of these organizations reported that they'd actually seen a manifestation of a significant insider risk within their own environment in the last 12 months. We have 2 new compliance solutions that address insider risk challenges and code of conduct violation challenges for customers in their specific environments. They leverage machine learning and intelligence to identify cyber risk, address code of conduct violation, and help an organization better respond to their regulatory compliance. We'll be talking about each of these solutions throughout the course of this presentation. So let's start with insider risk management first. So this is one of the solutions. This is one of the 2 solutions that we've recently released. And we'll first start with what the main principles, what the key design goals and principles of insider risk management are. And then we'll follow that up with a demo that will walk you through how the insider risk management capability works in Microsoft 365. So in designing this insider risk management solution, What we found is for this solution to be comprehensive, for this solution to add significant value in a customer's environment, 4 teams in the customer's organization had to come together. The security team that ensures confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. The HR team that balances the cultural perspective with employee empowerment. The legal team that ensures compliance with employment law. And the compliance team that maintains compliance with the regulations that apply to that specific organizations. So these 4 teams need to come together. They need to collaborate effectively for an insider risk management solution to deliver the value and help identify and take actions on insider risks effectively. In the design of the insider risk management solution, we have created workflows that bring all of these 4 different teams together. There are 3 principles that we've built the insider risk management solution on. The first is transparency. Transparency is critical to trust. So with transparency, we ensure that people have the visibility of who this insider risk management solution applies to, who the reviewers are, and complete track and presents a complete track of what actions are being performed in the implementation of insider risk management. The second principle is intelligence. Leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence, we significantly reduce the noise in the determination of insider risk in the organization. There are a plethora of events that flow in a modern workplace solution of today. Using machine learning and artificial intelligence, we significantly narrow down the noise that is created to help organizations effectively respond to insider risk. And then the third principle that we base the insider risk management solution on is deep integration with both Microsoft and third-party solutions. This deep integration with third-party solutions ensures that we capture signals from sources like Bloomberg, Twitter, and we incorporate these signals in the insider risk management solution in Microsoft 365. At the heart of the insider risk management solution is the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. This graph collates signals from both Microsoft systems and third-party systems. We built API integrations with HR systems that help us pull information such as when a person's employment is about to terminate. Taking these signals, coalescing these signals, we're able to produce intelligence that shows what are the activities that a person performed, as an example, when the person's employment was in the process of being terminated or the person was ending their employment. Because when you put that context together, you're better able to understand those specific activities. So the context-aware surfacing of activities is a significant value add of this solution. We have a number of playbooks that detect digital IP theft, confidentiality breaches, and a whole raft of other code of conduct violations. We have machine learning and artificial intelligence, as I mentioned before, that significantly reduces the noise generated by a plethora of signals from all of these different systems. So we only surface the information that is the most pertinent in the management of insider risk. We pseudonymize the display names of users for privacy reasons. So when you look at the usernames in the portal, in the console that I'll show you in a few seconds, what you will actually see is pseudonyms for users. This ensures that the privacy concerns of the users is balanced against the insider risk management requirements of the organization. We have comprehensive 360-degree view of in-scope activities to help organizations make the most data-rich decisions when managing insider risk. These are the different playbook categories that we have available. There are 3 playbook categories available. So the first is digital IP theft. Going back to the story that I mentioned before about the electric car company, a digital IP theft playbook would have most likely detected an event like that. The second playbook category we have is around data leaks. This category ensures that we're able to detect data leaks, whether these data leaks are intentional or unintentional. And then the third and final playbook category is HR policy violations. This helps us detect harassment, bullying, and that sort of code of conduct violation specific events. So with that, let's get into the demo section of the presentation. During this demo, we'll walk you through different aspects of the insider risk management capability in Microsoft 365 compliance. So let's start with the home page of insider risk management. You can find this capability in compliance.microsoft.com. That's the new compliance center where we've centralized most of the compliance capabilities in the Microsoft 365 platform. As you can see, there are a number of alerts that we surface on the home page of the insider risk management capability. We show you the active cases. We show you the risky users, and as you would notice, the risky users are pseudonymized, as in we're not showing the exact usernames of these users. What you're actually seeing for these users are pseudonyms. We also show policies with the maximum number of activities, as you'll actually see with Project Jupyter on this screen. Here, you'll see alerts in insider risk management. As you can see, we show you diagrammatic representation through bar graphs and line graphs of what the alerts are and what the alerts look like. There are color codings to indicate the severity of each of these alerts. If the color code is red, if the color being used is red for an alert, that basically means that it's a high severity alert. If it's orange, it's medium severity. If it's yellow, it's low severity. So here, we're actually seeing the details of a high severity alert. As you can see, on the 16th of September 2019, this employee resigned from their position. The resignation was expected to come into effect on the 25th of September 2019. On the 15th of September 2019 again, the employee copied 113 files to a USB. 54 of these files were classified top secret, and this event was determined to be a high severity event, and thus the color coding of red and the risk score of 92. On the same day, on the 15th of September 2019, this employee, as you can see, downloaded a whole raft of files from SharePoint Online, and this event was deemed medium severity and hence was color coded with orange. So from here, from the previous screen where we were showing the details of a specific alert, we can create a case. We actually have 2 choices here. We can either create a new case or we can dismiss the alert as benign, as you can see there. So we will choose to create a case. We have these fields that need to be filled in. So the case name, the triage users, the case details, and so on and so forth. We'll specify the case name here as IP theft. We've created the case now, and we're back to the cases list in this screen. As you can see, once again, color coding has been used to indicate the different status of cases. Purple means it's closed. Blue indicates that the case is still open. Let's now select the case that we just created. Here you can see the case details page for the case that we just created. You can see the case name, the status, the severity. You can see the policy matches that are tracked in this specific case. It shows the risk level graph. As you can see, it starts from 23 and goes all the way up to 92. Let's now get some more user activity information. So here we've actually shown the user activity timeline. As you can actually see, in May, there's offensive language that was used. In June, there were a whole raft of files that were downloaded. As you can see, in May, there was offensive language used. In June, there were a whole raft of files that were copied. In July, there were a whole raft of files that were downloaded. And in August, these files were shared externally. And as you can see, the resignation date was set for October 11th. So this timeline gives you the full context of the different activities that were performed in the light of the fact that the resignation date was set to October 11th. So given this context, you can make a more informed decision on the criticality of these events. Here, we can hover over the user activities to see more information about them. Yeah, so you can actually hover with the mouse and you can see further information about different events. Here, you can see different activities for the user. You can see that the user has previous history of violations. You can see what these violations are. Here, we're actually seeing another resignation event. This screen shows another suspicious file activity after the user submitted their resignation. The resignation information is being pulled from the HR system, the associated HR system, via the API integrations that I was referring to before. So it shows an event where the user has copied files after resignation. This shows the 219 files were copied to a USB stick that were highly confidential. Each of these files had a top secret label associated to them. And these labels were placed on these files using Azure Information Protection. Once the files have been discovered through the events that were surfaced in the previous screen, Content Explorer can be used in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center to view further details about that file. Content can also be read if the person reviewing that content has permissions to read that content. Here, we're previewing a selected document. There are two actions, as you can see, that can be performed on this content. We can escalate for data investigation. We can escalate for employee investigation. In our specific demonstration, we'll escalate for employee investigation. So here we select escalate for employee investigation. So this is the escalate for employee investigation dialog box. We can add more details before we escalate. Here we're back on the Content Explorer page. We have initiated an employee investigation, and that's the end of the demo for insider risk management. Next, let's talk about communication compliance. So next, let's talk about the communication compliance capability. This is another new exciting capability that's landed in the Microsoft 365 compliance story. There are three reasons why corporate communications would be required to be scanned. The first is corporate policy violations. So these include things like code of conduct violations, breach of ethical standards, and so on and so forth. The second category is risk management to identify and remediate risk within the corporate boundaries and beyond. The third is regulatory compliance, and this is all about an organization ensuring that the code of conduct taking place in an organization adheres to the regulatory stipulations that the organization has to meet. Here are some of the typical challenges that customers face today. The communication channels have expanded very, very significantly. No longer is it about emails. It's also now about instant messages, audio conversations, video conversations, chat conversations, conversations on Twitter and other social media platforms. There's been an exponential data growth across emails and a whole plethora of communication channels, which makes the detection of code of conduct violations rather challenging. The old cross-departmental processes that used to exist are no longer capable of keeping up to all these different channels of communication and the exponential rate of data growth. Then there are regulatory compliance challenges. There are over 200 updates from hundreds of regulatory standards across the globe. It's almost impossible for an organization to keep up to date with all of these different updates in a timely manner. There are significant ramifications of compliance breaches. They can result both in reputational damages and IP thefts, as the one we talked about at the beginning of this session, can lead to significant competitive compromise, can lead to significant competitive loss. So this new capability in communication compliance helps with code of conduct violations. It spans emails, Teams, Skype for Business, Bloomberg, Twitter, and a whole raft of such services. There are 3 inbuilt machine learning models available to detect phrases, words, and other harassing language. You can also build your own trainable classifiers that are specific to your organizational context. You can efficiently triage the events that are being generated. You can view the historical context of the conversations. We have deduping available within conversations as well. And we also have keyword highlighting built into the subsystems. We give you an interactive dashboard to help you prioritize the alerts that are being surfaced in terms of your code of conduct violations in your organization. Let's get to the exciting bit in communication compliance. Next, we'll walk you through a demo that will show you the power of the communication compliance capability in action. So this is the home page of communication compliance, once again in the new Compliance Center at compliance.microsoft.com. As you can see, there are 3 different policies: monitor for offensive language, monitor for sensitive information, and monitor for regulatory compliance. In our specific use case, we'll start with monitor for offensive language, and that's what's highlighted on the screen right now. So this shows you the code of conduct violation page with the users who've matched this specific policy. It shows that specific user's offensive language use. It shows the Teams conversations where that offensive language was used. As you can see, the user used offensive language multiple times across various channels. Here we show the user history of the violations. As you can see, there have been 2 escalations already and 1 notification associated to this user. So this gives you the historical context for you to make a more informed decision on the specific code of conduct violation you are viewing at that point in time. The system can also detect duplicates across the board. For example, in this specific instance, the user has sent offensive language messages to 2 different women, and the system can detect that and collate that information for decision making for you. Next, we have the capability of sending the user a notification, and we can also copy HR on this notification if necessary. We have another option, which is to escalate to HR and legal for repeat offenders. What we're actually seeing here is now the regulatory compliance area in the communication compliance capability in compliance.microsoft.com. As you can see, there's been a policy violation detected where a user asked to transfer money to a specific account. We can take this message, we can tag this message, we can tag this message as compliant, non-compliant, or questionable. We can also add comments in the tagging process. Here, we're actually seeing the history of violations, regulatory compliance violations. Let's recap then. There are 3 built-in policies that are available to you, which allow you to monitor against offensive language, help you detect sensitive information being leaked, and help you determine any regulatory compliance breaches. There is also a capability to build your own custom policies, and we'll talk about that capability next. So let's create a custom policy. So first, we'll specify the name and description of this custom policy. Now we'll specify the supervised users and reviewers. So the supervised users are the users that this policy will apply to, and the reviewers are the reviewers that will review the results of this policy. Next, we'll specify the location. There are several locations available to you in Teams, emails, and there are lots of third-party locations available to you, including Bloomberg. Next, we go to the conditions and percentage step of creating the custom policy. First, we specify what the communication direction is, whether it's inbound or outbound. Next, we specify the condition and the criteria. We then specify what the percentage is. So the percentage determines how sensitive the system should be in its detections. You can decrease the percentage to avoid unnecessary noise. In this condition step, we specify the specific conditions for this custom policy. We can choose from whether content matches classifiers. We can choose whether content includes sensitive information types. Sensitive information types is a construct that's used across Microsoft 365. For example, a sensitive information type could be an Australian driver's license number or an Australian passport number. We have over 100 sensitive information types available in the Microsoft 365 platform that can be used across data loss prevention, information protection, and communication compliance. We can also choose from whether message contains any of the words we specify here. Next, we get to the choose classifier and condition step. As you can see, these are all the different classifiers we have available. Offensive language is one of them. Resume or source code is another one of them. We have harassment and profanity. We have threat, and in this specific instance, we'll select threat. After we've specified the values for each of the steps in the preceding screens, we get to the review and finish custom policy creation page. Once we review and finish the custom policy creation, the policy will go into effect and we'll begin to see the results from this policy. So with that, we come to the end of the communication compliance demo. To get started with the insider risk management or communication compliance capability, please visit compliance.microsoft.com. There is also a short URL, a friendly URL available for communication compliance at aka.ms/communicationcompliance. Please talk to your Microsoft account representative about these 2 new capabilities, and if you would like to try them out. Thank you very much for your time. to join us for this insider risk management and communication compliance session. Next, I'll hand over to my colleague Lou McCurry, who will walk you through information protection and governance, the foundations of compliance. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. That was fantastic. Welcome back, everyone. Let's begin this session by hearing from one of our customers and hearing about their thoughts on data lifecycle and information governance.
Shell's one of the largest global energy companies. We operate in over 70 countries and have over 86,000 employees. Protecting our information of our customers and our staff is critical for us, and Microsoft has been helping us to reduce our risks.
There are many international companies, but Shell is a truly global company. We use Microsoft 365 all over the world, from oil refineries in Houston and Rotterdam to offices in the Philippines and The Hague, and to places as in Kazakhstan, where we have upstream operations.
There's certain information that companies need to keep, and there's legal requirements about keeping that information and being able to show it to regulators.
We are creating massive amounts of data on a daily basis. Microsoft 365 enables us to manage that information in an efficient manner.
With our old way of doing things, it was really a struggle. The tools were very difficult to use, and there was little upside for staff in using them properly. I shouldn't need to have 100,000 people understand all of these details about information management. We'll get them to do the right thing by making it super easy to do the right thing. We see a lot of opportunity with the machine learning tools to automatically classify information so that without the users having to take any action, we can put things in the right place, ensure that they're properly labeled, retained, and protected.
Managing information effectively and efficiently has been a big challenge. With Microsoft 365 enables us to achieve that objective.
That's a great insight. Help our users do the right thing by making it super easy to do the right thing. But discovering and managing data is very hard, and it's becoming even harder. You've already heard me talk about the data explosion, and here at Microsoft, we've been talking about the data explosion for years. The reality of it is that this message is still relevant, as all of us struggle in our organisations to keep up with the amount of data we're producing every day, whether it's from information workers, line of business systems, IoT devices, or anything else. We just can't keep up. For example, within Microsoft 365, we've really created frictionless collaboration for people to work from everywhere. But it's hard to know everything that's in your tenant and what people are creating, even when thinking just about this part of your data. Now extrapolate that to all of your other systems. This explosion of data is not helped by the fact that the world is becoming much more regulated by the minute. Local or national governments are creating new laws. Industry-specific agencies are adding or updating their directives, and even internally, organisations are creating policies, all to regulate not only how we store data, but also how we dispose of information. All of these factors contribute to increased risks for every organisation, and that's why 88% of organisations no longer feel confident in detecting and preventing the loss of sensitive data. And it's why protecting and governing sensitive data in compliance and regulations has become the number one concern for organisations. Okay, so now that we've talked about the challenges we're all facing and why it feels hard to solve them, let's pivot into what we can do about it. How do we at Microsoft solve this problem, and what can we offer to assist you? Compliance is a big focus for us at Microsoft, and how we think about our compliance offerings is by breaking them down into 4 separate pillars, each with their own focus and set of solutions. I'm focusing on the information protection and governance pillar with a focus on information governance of your data wherever it lives. With this pillar, we break down the challenges or activities in 3 parts. Knowing your data, which allows you to understand what you have and classified appropriately for multiple purposes, protecting your data in order to restrict access or distribution of it, and governing your data to keep only what you need to and delete what you don't. In this session, I'll be talking about governing your data, and I've already covered know your data in my previous presentation. I'll spend time here really focusing on how you can use our solutions to reduce your risk by decreasing the amount of information you must protect and worry about, as well as putting appropriate controls in place to retain what you do keep. First of all, when it comes to governing your data across your environment, we group the value we provide you into 2 solutions: information governance and records management. The name change from data governance to information governance is recent, and you might have seen it in your tenants already. We've done this to align better with our vision and other solutions such as information protection. When talking about what you can do with these solutions, there are 4 core values we'll walk through today. First, we're going to start with streamlined administration. This has been an area of investment for us over the past couple of years, as we've heard loud and clear from all of you that you managing a set of governance policies in SharePoint, another set in Exchange, and then yet another for each of your line of business systems was not productive and it felt redundant. That's why we've centralised the administration of policies within one roof in the Office 365 Security and Compliance Centre. And we've added native connectors to let you bring your data in to be governed by one set of policies. Our second area is about controlling that data explosion we've been talking about. And it's about scaling and automating. Because of the amount of data being generated and how regulations keep changing, even if you were 100% good today, you're already behind tomorrow. And unless your governance policies work automatically, you won't be able to catch up. However, it's not enough to centralize and automate. You need to be able to adapt and tailor our solution to your processes and monitor that everything is happening as you anticipate throughout your entire life cycle. This is our third area of investment we'll talk about. And last but certainly not least, we know that not all your information in your tenant is the same. If all your data was represented by all that you have in your house, records are those things that you keep in your vault. your most valuable or critical assets. As with anything you would keep in a vault, the procedures and rules around records management are different, which is why we've split them out into its own solution. And it's another key area of investment within our governance capabilities. And let's dive into each of these. So let's dive right into what we have in the product and how we help you.
So let's take a closer look at what this looks like, starting with how we can help streamline administration. Over the last few years, we've centralized our governance capabilities so you don't have to manage policies in different products. In line with this, you'll find the information governance features in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. As we continue to add new features that support new products that provide retention for, you'll see them in this experience going forward. Our goal has been to provide you with capabilities that let you discover and govern your data across your complete digital estate. And we know that there's very few customers who would only have data in Microsoft 365, which is why we've been investing in making it easier for you to bring in data through tools for Exchange and SharePoint on-prem, as well as creating native connectors so you can bring in your third-party data and then use all of our great features of intelligent classification, discovery, retention, etc. Let's start by looking at the native connectors we include to help you bring your heterogeneous content into Microsoft 365. So here in the Data Connectors overview page, you can see that we have a number of social as well as enterprise connectors. This includes the Instant Bloomberg connector, which will let anyone who utilizes instant messaging within the Bloomberg terminal import your data into the corresponding user's mailbox and leverage all of our compliance capabilities. Bloomberg is a very popular application that's used in the financial industry, and I'm sure it's a commonplace application in many other verticals as well. So having governance for this kind of data is super critical for everyone. I'll be using it during this demo. And as you can see, I have a connection already set up to save time. So let me quickly walk you through it. And let's click on Instant Bloomberg. And as you can see here, the connector's configuration information is supplied natively inside Microsoft 365. And this makes it really easy to work with. When I click on Edit, I'll see the configuration options provided for me with lots of assistance along the way. And when we get to the user mapping section here, what we're doing is actually mapping your Bloomberg ID directly to your Microsoft 365 account. So let's say, for example, you have Adele, who's Bloomberg data you're trying to bring in for her. So Adele has a Bloomberg ID, and in Microsoft 365, she also has a Microsoft 365 account. Once we've configured the mapping here, Adele's Bloomberg data will start flowing into her mailbox. And here we are in Adele's inbox, and we have the folder here called Instant Bloomberg that she's seen, and all of her content is available. As an administrator, of course, you've got to set up some policies against that content. And now that we have this flow of Bloomberg data here, we can apply some governance by using e-discovery. We can apply retention policies, and we can analyze the messages to ensure that there aren't any policy violations. Next up, we'll talk about the second piece, which is automation at scale. Once I've got my data where it can be managed, then all of our governance features light up. We know that customers can't keep up with how much data is being generated, so we've built these capabilities. So as we build these capabilities, we focused on the need to automate the governance process and simplify it. It's only through this simplicity and automation that we can hope to provide the scale our customers are demanding. So let's go through a few scenarios at our favorite company, Contoso, and see what they need in order to manage all their data. So we'll select Information Governance from the menu on the left here. And here at Contoso, we approach controlling the data explosion. Our approach is to ensure that we have some broad deletion policies. Anything on SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and all emails are deleted within 5 years from the last time someone touched them. All Teams messages are kept for only a week in order to reduce our legal liability, as this allows our team to communicate freely on IM without feeling that this will be around for a long time. We're going to use this information to set up Teams retention. Satisfying these requirements is easy, since we can configure just the one policy that will apply to all applicable workloads at the same time. So let's select the retention option here and move on. And we'll click on New Retention Policy, and let's give it a name. And we'll call this General Business Documentation. And we'll add a meaningful description as well. And now I get to choose whether I need to retain the content or not. In this case, I don't need it to be preserved. I just want it gone within a week. So I'll select that option. And here I can choose which locations this policy will apply to. And this either lets me explicitly include and exclude certain users or sites. In my case, I'll choose just to do Teams, and select all channel messages and chats. Let's have a look at that. Great. So I'll pause here and review the details. And that looks good for now. So I can click Create this policy to complete it. I'll let this policy do its thing, which could take up to a day, after which I can see the results. And here is my newly created retention policy. So now that we've created a retention policy, how do we get to the next step? How do we do automation at scale? So next up, we're going to look at retention labels and the ability to apply those labels to emails and documents, and have the content retained based on my settings. This is incredibly powerful. So let's create that label now and see what I mean. So we'll create a new label here, and we'll use this label to manage documents related to a finance project, code name, Project Orlando. We'll give the label a name and a description. And we'll have a description for the audience here as well as a more tailored one for my end users. It's really important that these descriptions are clear, especially those for the end users. If we expect them to do the right thing, we have to make it really easy and as clear as possible for them. And now that I've named my label, I want to make sure someone is reviewing the labeled content. So we're going to trigger a disposition review. Let's choose the trigger a disposition review option right here. Let's add in a reviewer, and we can use a delta. And you can see here that we've got lots of flexibility around how to trigger retention, be it around when an artifact is created, when it was modified, or with respect to events, of course. This is where you can also decide whether to classify content as a record or not. And for this one, we'll choose no. We don't want to classify this as a record. Now we're ready to review our settings, and that looks good, and it does look good. We can hit next, and we've got lots of options for this case. In this case, for both when to start counting the retention period, how long to keep for, and what to do at the end of that retention period. So some examples here for your legal notifications. I would recommend 5 years from when it was created and then deleted automatically. So reviewing these settings, this looks good. So let's create this label and move on. So now we can see the Project Orlando label we just created here in our list of labels. This is where you can manually apply the label to control your governance, but that we know is not going to scale. So let's talk about how to automatically apply those labels, which is the only way we're going to scale these things. Let's click on that newly created label and examine some more options. So when they dig into this label we created for project or landowner, you can choose to publish it manually. Let's look at the auto apply a label option at the top of the screen instead. And let's click on that and move on. And we'll click next. And by now, if you've seen my earlier session today, this should look familiar to you. Here we've got multiple choices for auto application. The first one is using the out-of-box sensitive information types. There's about 150 of these rules that you can use. You can also create your own custom rules as well and supplement the sensitive information types we provide. So we'll go back and look at the next option. And here, in this option, we provide the ability to use keyword query language or KQL for short. As you can see on this screen, we provide a keyword query editor for you to work with. This also allows for those customers who already do enterprise content management and want to leverage KQL in order to manage their content. This may be content they've already categorized in SharePoint with existing content types and metadata. This is really flexible and really powerful. And last but not least, our trainable classifiers that are powered by machine learning. So what you have here in the whole labeling flow is our out-of-box or built-in classifiers. These are the machine learning classifiers that we have available to you. We've got 6 of them today, and with more to come. You can use these out-of-box classifiers to identify resumes or identify content, source code, and typically that's something that you might want to do to meet your GDPR or other compliance needs. As good as these ready-to-go classifiers are, we recognise that customers will have unique sets of data that they'd like to include here. So we've included the ability to create your own. Let's see how that's done. And for those of you who've watched my previous section, I'll be covering some of the same ground here, but that's okay. This is so cool that it's well worth seeing again. So from the data classification page, I click Create Trainable Classifier. And let's begin by creating a trainable classifier for contracts. Contracts are something almost every organization does differently. There's no standard protocol for how things are done, so let me take that example of a contract here and I'll go fill out these fields. Let's name this Contoso Contracts and add a meaningful description. It's a very simple 3-step process. I'm giving it a name and I'm giving it a seed. Seed is typically the content you're going to view as positive or negative status, telling the system what a contract is and what is not a contract. And please remember, garbage in is garbage out. So if you only seed with garbage, then that's the model that will come out. So let's point to a SharePoint site that has this seed content, and we'll look for a suitable one now. We're going to need at least 50 seed content, seed documents to train our classifier. And we've got quite a few here. So let's just take a look at one of them to make sure this is the kind of document that we want to be looking for. And yes, it looks like exactly what we're looking for. So we'll confirm that we want to add this site and specific folders to our seed content. So now that I've confirmed that this site contains suitable contents, let's go back to creating a trainable classifier. And again, note that we need at least 50 seeding files here, as many as 500. We've confirmed the folder that we want to look in, so let's add that here. And now that our seed content is specified and the trainable classifier can get to work, we can move on. Okay, so in review, that looks okay, and now when I confirm and click Create Trainable Classifier, I'm kicking off with the creation of a statistical-based model. And here we can see that Contoso Contracts is now in progress. and it's ready for me to test and review. And let's kick that off. So as you can see, what's happened here is that we've created a base model, and the second step now is for you to further refine and test that model. We'll need to point to another site to validate and provide feedback to that model. So in that way, we're improving accuracy. So let's have a look at the tested documents and see how we went. Okay, we've got a good selection of documents to work with here. And as you see toward the bottom of the screen, we have some documents marked not relevant, as well as a lot flagged as relevant, and that's great. Let's check some of them out in more detail. Let's start with the island document here. So here we've got the ability to preview content, and that's going to help inform my decision to confirm this is a relevant document or not. And it's really how I train and classify to be more accurate. I'll say yes to this one because it looks good, and we'll check out another document. This one's on project proposal. It's not a contract, so it was close. No notes again. I'm going to say no to this one, and we can review a couple more. This is a no as well, and what I'm actually doing here is called active learning, training that model, and that's probably enough for now, so we'll move on. So I don't need to do all of this at once, because we can keep track of our progress here. But the aim is to keep at it until you achieve the accuracy you need. And in my case, I've managed to hit a 99.6% accuracy level. I'm really happy with that. So let's click on publish and then move on. Now that I'm done, let's close this window. And now that we've finished publishing, we can see that our classifier is ready to use. And let's move down from the in progress section there. Just to see. Let's move into information governance on the left here. And we'll jump back into our label creation, and notice that in addition to the out-of-the-box classifiers I've always had, we now see my newly created Totoso contracts classifier in my list of options. So we'll use that and complete this label order classification setup. Let's give this a name and a description. And we'll click next. And now we can specify the locations where we have contents that we want to apply a label to. By default, it's going to apply to content in Exchange, email, public folders, Office 365, Groups, OneDrive, SharePoint. We can get much more granular with our scope. So let's click on and be a bit more specific. I only want to apply this to SharePoint site context, so I'll unselect everything else. And that's okay. And once again here we can review the details we entered, and when we're ready we click Auto Apply to start the labeling process. Note that this can take up to 7 days depending on how much we need to upload to apply all the content that you need meets your criteria. So let's click on Apply, and that's it from the administration side of things. So let's see how this works from the end user point of view, and you can do that by jumping into a document here. This is an information working on a contract for a project, project or land, and as you would expect, I hope this document is going to be picked up as a contract by a trainable classifier and our automatic labeling. So I'm told here that I've got to park my contract documents in this site, and that's typically what I do in my day-to-day job. So I don't need to know the big picture of how project content needs to be labelled or obtained. I'm just going to upload my content and share SharePoint site as instructed. So let's click upload here. And now I'll click on Files and I'm going to select the document that I've been working on. It's called Contract Notice, and there it is. And there we go. I don't know who needs to collaborate on this document or what's happening at the back end. I'm just uploading it, doing my job. So I can see that my document has been uploaded a few seconds ago. But the retention label column shows that there's no retention label on it. And that could be a problem. Now remember what I've mentioned a few times already, we need to make things easy for users to do the right thing. So let me get rid of that upload notification. And now we can see that the confirmation that the trainable classifier just has run against the site and validated all the content. It's correctly identified the contract notice document as a contract and has also labelled it. This automation is so powerful and such a great example of how we can allow end users to be productive and helps them stay compliant. Let's move on. So moving on to the next area of investment. We know that every organisation is different, and we'll need to adapt and tailor our solutions to your specific needs. To satisfy these needs, we focus on a few key parts to help you. First, once you've classified and applied retention to all your data and it's getting automatically labelled and disposed, you still need to understand what's going on with your data, what's getting labelled, and where and why. To address this need, we've built into the product a few experiences that I'll show you during the demo. We have the ability to show you all items that have been tagged with a particular label. And we've also built an activity explorer which lets you understand how those activities are happening over time. Besides monitoring and understanding the labeling activity of your items, it's important to be able to trigger the retention periods for each one of those labels to match your business activities, which is why recently we introduced event-based retention, including automation through web services, to allow you to create custom events such as the departure of an employee in order to start the retention process of the applicable items. And finally, when it's time to dispose or delete items from your tenant, it's common for users to feel like they need to make sure those specific documents or emails can be disposed. Which is why we've introduced the disposition review feature, which lets you name specific people of that label to be able to review and act on what should be done for each item as it reaches the end of its retention period. And so you use to start labeling content and some of it's automatically labeled and disposed. You'll want to know how this process is going and what items are getting labeled. We've got a couple of ways to do this. First of all, within information governance, you can choose a label and select Explore All Items. Here I can go and explore all the items already tagged with this label and where they are, including your new experience to review that content. So let's have a look at Project Orlando. Here's the label we created earlier for Project Orlando. let's see what shows up and click Explore Items. Okay. Now in the Activity Explorer of Data Classification, where we can see recent activity like labels being applied or removed. But let's take a look at some of the content itself. By looking at Content Explorer, we'll click that at the top nav. We've got several files here within the SharePoint folder. Let's explore this folder and drill in. Let's drill in a bit deeper. And here we go, we've got a list of files that we classified earlier. Let's have a look at this one. So from this view, we can explore the contents of the file alongside with its metadata like sensitive information types, and we can drill down further as needed by reviewing the source content stored in SharePoint itself. So that's our Content and Activity Explorer. Let's move on to the disposition review. We'll need to click on Information Governance on the left here. And from here, we'll click on Disposition. And then there's our project or and our label. And it shows 7 files that are pending disposition. Let's look at them. So of the content we've classified, we can see that some of the documents are at the end of their retention period. So we need to review and determine whether we want to relabel, extend retention, or delete them permanently. I suspect the terms and conditions document has expired, so let's click into it for more detail. And as we select the files for review, we're presented with the available options, and I can determine how best to proceed from here. It's really simple and straightforward. And finally, all of our features and selections we've already walked through apply to all the content in the organization. However, you do have that special set of content which needs to be declared as a record being immutable. So recently we launched the Records Management area, and just like information governance, we're excited to take the next step by bringing in the Records Management solution into the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, where we'll be continuing to add new features and exciting new capabilities. In this like application, we brought all the great capabilities you already had available, like file plan manager, which lets you import and manage complex retention schedules by being able to add descriptors around which department, policy, or citation each label satisfies. We continue to provide you with the capability of declaring an item as a record using retention labels, which ensures the immutability and preservation of the item. We also continue to audit all of the events surrounding a record in our audit log, and even have improved this with the ability to obtain proof of disposal and be able to see all items disposed as part of a record label within the disposition section. This was previously only available to labels with disposition review. We've now expanded it to all record labels. And lastly, we know that none of the record declaration disposition process is the top concern for our information workers. They tend to see all these controls as friction and additional hoops to jump through. This is why we already have the capability to integrate our disposition process natively within all the tools that your users are familiar with, including SharePoint and Outlook. And recently, we introduced a new feature to make collaboration on record declared documents even better. Records version allows users to unlock a document with a record label to make edits to it with all record versions safely retained. So let's walk through some records management, and we'll select the records management solution to the left to begin. Okay. So here we see a beautiful overview of what's going on. Let's think about how do we help our customers declare records that are against the content where it was born rather than moving them out of place. So let's quickly talk about how easy it is to onboard onto the system. Of course, many organizations already have complex retention schedules in their organization, and we can incorporate them very simply with a file plan. So we can start from scratch here, or we can bring in your existing retention schedule in an Excel spreadsheet or other CSV file. We'll click on import and see what that looks like. And we'll browse for our file and bring it in. And there it is. It's called File Plan Import. Let's grab it. And now that we can see that they've been converted into labels. In fact, it puts in all the metadata as well that you've provided in that file with the schema, which is great to see. Now, last but not least, most end users don't want to interrupt workflow to do records management. That's a bit of an understatement. Let's now see how in-place records management can help us out there. I'll have a part here of an end user in SharePoint, and I've parked a file here called pricing guidelines, which I'm using for some of my project purposes. So let's select that file. So as I scroll down on the right-hand side here, I can see the record status is shown that the document is locked. Things change though, and you've shared this URL with many people, and the file's mutable. So how can you update this file with having to create another copy and then send everyone the new link to the new copy? That's a horrible experience. So rather than do that, as an end user, I can unlock that file. And now that it's been unlocked, I can now work with this file because it's no longer immutable. I can edit the file and lock it back again, which is great, very convenient. But how do I maintain immutability? Well, every time you lock or unlock, what we're going to do is actually save a version history for you. If I click on version history here, we can see the version history for this file. So the version history is stored so that you can still maintain compliance as an administrator. Printer information work was not burdened. They keep working, and the original link that they sent out will still remain valid and still link back to the document. And one final piece I'll share with you today is the audit solution in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. So here we can see whether a user deleted a document or if an admin resets someone's password. You can search through the audit log for activities related to email, groups, documents, and more. We're going to search for a few different activities in this drop-down list, and we're looking for any changes to record status or compliance policy labels. And now that I've selected the activities I'm looking for, let's see what comes up and when I click search. So here we see all the results that meet our search parameters. And now we can easily track what changes have occurred and take action as needed.
So with that, I'd like to invite you once again to think about trial and have already done so. And thank you for your attention. I'll hand you over to Jason for the next session.
We'll now be taking a short break and we'll be back soon. Feel free to ask your questions during this time using the Q&A window. Or you can also have a look at the additional resources we've provided you using the Resources widget. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.